I've noticed over about 15 years of doing sessions about programmatic advertising that a new innovation will come out and we will spend a lot of time debating what it actually means. So we will have to start there because it's just a requirement. So when we are talking about agentic advertising, and I think this is going to be the year with AI where we're going to hear about agents all the time because a lot of people have to justify also, with the large language models, all the money that they're burning through. And agents, the whole idea of agents is that they're going to go out in the real world and they're going to do things on our behalf. Okay. And it sounds like amazing. I think there's a lot probably that's going to have to happen before that becomes a reality. I always wonder when it will be able to book the trip to CES. Which year of CES will it actually be able to do that on its own? But it's going to be applied to all different areas. And so we're going to talk about agentic advertising, but we have to start with what exactly are we talking about when we talk about agentic advertising? Andrew.
Yeah, that is the big question. Like in our prep earlier, I was remarking that even just in the last 36 hours, I've sort of coined this term, agentic confusion, which is just, I think, born out of the fact that there's so much hype and there's so much dialogue and there's so much really cool innovation happening, but there's also multiple solutions to our problems at large happening simultaneously. And it's almost too much for everyone to kind of grok and keep on top of it at once. So I'd largely boil it down into two. This is a great oversimplification as well because there are even more, but there's two big camps that I see, at least in the discussions that we're having here. One is on the workflow automation side, which is the premise of having eventually the vision of sell-side and buy-side agents working amongst themselves in a phenomenally automated way to potentially automate a lot of what happens within the ad server, automating the insertion of line items and doing all kinds of things that historically we use a lot of human time to do. That's exciting. And that's where you've got AdCP and a bunch of announcements happening with the first of their kinds tests occurring too. There's also another area of innovation that, at least at Index, we're really excited by, which is what we call sell-side decisioning, or just the premise that more and more of the decision-making is getting closer and closer to the origin of the impression. And this is where, if we can move away from the model of ad stack operating at great distance to one where you almost have the impression, the consumer, the publisher, data, the decision, models, eventually agents, and then to cap it off, really powerful GPUs very close to the impression, we can do things that we'd almost consider to be otherworldly. You can get to a place where the advertising is almost like what you might see in something like Minority Report. It's like the ads know who you are, and then eventually
This has been promised a long time.
I know, but I have to say, I do think it's going to occur. And so what is that? Just in this soup of confusion, that's the agentic framework that's happening within Tech Lab. That's containerized models that are happening at the edge. Those would be the two, I guess, buckets that I would frame. But today, a lot of them are blurring into each other, which is why I've sort of said this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of agentic confusion because use cases from both are kind of like folding into each other. There's almost like a false dichotomy of these being rival proposals, which they're not. They're actually very complementary. I've said too much, but I'll pass it over. But that'd be my.
And just build on that if you can from the agency perspective and where you see this going. Where our, agent is very close to agency, so maybe they're coming for you guys. I'm not sure.
Wouldn't be the first.
As I said before, I always bet on agencies. Rashad Tabakawala had the best line. He said, "Never bet against agencies or cockroaches. They will always find a way." And if that's offensive, it's Rashad, not me. So tell us what exactly, first of all, what are you driving towards, as an organization?
Yeah.
And then what are you actually doing right now? Is it not just, but is it on the workflow level?
Yeah, of course. And the truth is, the answer to a degree is it's all of those things. There is one area I would also just add to your definition a minute ago, Andrew, which is, I think about this a lot in terms of knowledge management and transfer across an organization. We are a very, very scaled organization in the United States, but globally we have over 40,000 people working for us. We are fundamentally a people and a knowledge business. And sometimes being able to transfer that know-how of how to do the work, how to do the craft, that can be challenging across borders, across different people. So that's something that if you want to think of it immediately within our business, and it's quite a tactical thing, but it's very, very critical to us. That is an area where we're using agentic advertising today. And I think moving forward of where we need to go, we need to do that at a bigger scale. But I think that, to use your kind of definition a moment ago, the workflow kind of definition, I kind of associate that with efficiency. And obviously, being in the business we're in, there's been many turns of the efficiency wheel, at least in the last 10 years that I've been really working in a role where I've seen that in the organization. There's been several ones, and it started with programmatic advertising. It's went through to DSPs, and it continues to go. And I think that is an incremental change, pretty significant one, and important, because we do need to be more efficient. We do need to drive a lower cost to serve for our advertisers, and we do obviously ultimately need them to see an uplift in their cost per growth, per outcome, whatever it happens to be that's important to them. That's critical. And I think that to fast forward a certain amount of years, you will have a remodeling of the way that we structure our business. We'll continue to have like large scaled people-based businesses. That's not going to change, but the roles that the people take on with those businesses will change. We will integrate very, very closely with agents, but we will assume supervisory roles. We will assume policy-making roles. We will assume model-making roles to be able to ensure that they are delivering the way they should be for our clients. And I think as we go forward, and we'll probably get onto this a little bit in a moment, so I won't, kind of get too deep into this, there's a real opportunity for us to re-engage our own intellectual property in the ecosystem in a way that's been difficult with the rise of the walled gardens in the ecosystem over a few years. So we're really excited about that as well.
Yeah, I want to stick with the walled gardens for a minute, because it seems like the way with how you're describing agentic advertising, it's almost like an alternative in some ways to how it is inevitably going to be deployed within walled gardens. As I think one of the other big trends that is not going to go away is like outcomes-based ad buying. And so tell me if I'm wrong, but the walled gardens, their pitch is going to be pretty just give us the outcome you want, your budget, we'll take in all your SKUs, and then, we'll take over from there. There's a trade-off obviously there with perhaps they're grading their own homework, but it seems like those are different paradigms. Are you seeing, like, how are your conversations different when you're talking with, the large scale platforms versus, what we're talking about here?
Yeah, no, of course. And it makes sense. And I think that some of the technical benefits that come out of this, this process, and where hopefully it will go in 3 to 5 years, some of the walled gardens are already sitting on those advantages today, right? They have vertically integrated businesses. They own the technology. They own the cloud layer. They own obviously the software, all of the IP, and that does give them certain advantages across measurement, even simple things like just being able to calculate latency, all those sorts of things. All of those technical benefits they have in their organization today, and it has allowed them to build really credible outcome-based solutions. Like, we have many of our clients adopting these. There is always a little bit of reticence at the start about handing control off to, quote unquote, not my words, a black box. But we've seen that happen many times. I mean, I was, in the business when we first started adopting smart bidding and search, and it was slow, and then it took off. So, we're seeing the same thing with those solutions too. And I think that there is a degree of transparency that's given, and we do see what the sales look like. But what we don't really understand is how the AI drove the outcome. And there are efforts, and I want to credit them, there are efforts in those businesses to show more of that. But I think that, critically for us, sitting in the role that we do as an agent of our clients, with a fiduciary duty to them, we always want to understand more about that decisioning. We want to be able to do more analysis across the ecosystems to see where those sales are being delivered. That's often where it gets a little bit woolly. So I feel that when you're having an agentic conversation, many times you feel like you're having it very much within that ecosystem. So for me, is that truly what we're talking about here? I don't think it is. I think we're talking about something that's much more collaborative, much more brave, and and I think a lot more exciting. And fundamentally, if we are only being able to deliver an agentic solution within one garden and another garden, we're not really solving the critical challenge that we're being tasked with by our clients, which is grow my business holistically, understand those levers to be more efficient.
Yeah. So one of the questions I have, Andrew, is whether this is good for the quote unquote open internet. We can define that as it is, or whether this is just another acceleration of, most of the ad budgets going to the large platforms. Whether this can actually level the playing field for other ecosystem participants.
So I would look at it from the perspective of we don't really have a choice but to attempt to create our own, the open internet at large mechanism to drive outcomes at scale, because that's already been solved. Like Meta and Google aren't preparing for an agentic future where they can sell you outcomes. They already do it. They don't optimize your budget. You give them your sales data off and online, and they know who buys your products. They model based on that, and then they sell more products to other people like them. Like it's been cracked. They can do it because they operate at incredible scale. They have great data, and they also have incredible compute. I think one of the challenges for the rest of the market is no independent publisher has all three of those assets. But collectively, the open internet is enormous. Collectively, everyone's data combined is also enormous. But then if you look at the way ad tech has operated historically, everyone has also had to solve the problem of compute independently, which has effectively meant everyone has had to take on the same redundant costs over and over and over again. And we did it with CPUs, not GPUs, which are a lot more powerful and can do these phenomenal things. That's the point that I think breaks the old construct that we have to transcend, which is, what if instead of everyone continuing to try to solve all these problems in a suboptimal way, we collectively come together with standards and eventually with standardized embeddings to use basically the same compute to solve everyone's problem simultaneously and almost flip the script. And I think we have the potential to do that. GPUs are...
Potential is doing a lot of work there, though, Andrew.
GPUs are incredibly powerful, but they're very expensive, and they also consume a lot of electricity. So if you needed every publisher on the planet to have their own fleet of them, it would be cost prohibitive, and we would probably destroy the planet.
Yeah.
So that's not going to work. So we'll either end up with a small number of companies that have these huge farms, or we can come together to try to solve this problem in a new way. And I think we're getting to the place where we can. A huge event has already taken place, which is sort of the setup to what I think this impression level agentic future is going to be, which is, for the first time, frankly, in the history of ad tech, we are seeing companies make their value portable. Everyone historically really held on to their platforms. We used to send requests out. It would be looked at by their server farms and CPUs, and they would send responses back. And it worked, and it got us here. However, it's very cost prohibitive to do that. It's very inefficient. It's very slow. And that's based on the old construct that is governed by CPUs, which don't do multiplications nearly as fast as a GPU. We have an opportunity to kind of rethink that, and we're starting to do that. Like, even some of the people in this room, like I saw Cognitive, I see Swim. I think I may have seen a few other partners in the containerized bidding space. We now have companies deploying containerized models outside of their own infrastructure right to the origin of the impression. This breaks ranks with the way ad tech has always operated and allows this shared compute construct to occur. And as we start to then bring more data assets from the buy side to bear, more publisher assets on the data side to bear too, more powerful chips as well, you kind of get to an entirely new framework, which sort of looks like a hyper-scaled version, a more democratized version of what the walled gardens have. And I do like our chances. And I don't really think we have a choice but to pursue this. I don't think this is like a new opportunity for ad tech to profit. I actually think it's an opportunity to potentially wrestle away some power from the walled gardens.
Yeah. And what about the open internet and my friends, the publishers? Is there any hope that this could actually benefit publishers versus massive platforms?
Well, like I would just direct your attention to where ad budget growth is going. There is no marketer on the planet that has any obligation to spend $1 with any publisher.
Correct.
And if their dollars get more mileage with Meta, they're going to give them more of their dollars. So I think to any publisher in the room, and certainly a community that's very near and dear to Index, this is incredibly critical because we need a way to compel those budgets to not just exclusively go to 3 or 4 companies.
Right. You mentioned containerized like agentic. We have to circle back to
For
that
sure.
and why it's important, because it is important.
Absolutely.
Because when we're talking about, getting this down to the impression level,
Yeah.
you need that would within an auction, it would have to be containerized.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So, it's obviously technical and I don't want to lose the audience, but just think of just a very simple idea. If you have a really big, powerful chip from NVIDIA that costs $40,000, you can ask it 1 question, you can ask it 100 questions, you can ask it 1,000,000 questions. And that's where we start to get to a place where the same toys and tools that Meta has, everyone can have. If we get to a place where we start to organize all of these problems right at the origin of the impression where those chips can live. But containerization effectively allows code to be portable. So instead of code being in all these different fiefdoms, it can instead be in the same place. It can use the same chip. It can use the same electricity. And we don't have to solve the same problems 100 times. And we also don't need nearly as much CapEx to do it.
Yeah. Is it in like the agency's interest and your client's interest, more importantly, for this to move to the decisioning layer and in particular, like to get as close to the impression as possible? And like, what are the hurdles to that actually happening? Are they technical or is it more just like business logic?
There's a lot there. I don't know where I'd start on that. I mean, the short answer is we exist to build our clients' businesses. We're here to grow their business. If there is a way for us to drive outcomes in a clearer, more efficient way or a more cost-efficient way, then we believe that that's going to be good for our clients, as long as it, goes with all the things you would expect: transparency, the ability to deliver brand suitable content, make sure it's culturally relevant, whatever it happens to be. So there are many benefits that we have already seen in some of the tests that we've run with sell-side decisioning that have shown us the ability to, for example, have a more transparent view across what is available in the ecosystem on the impression level before we buy. That's sort of like point 1. The second one is to be able to provide a greater diversity of decisioning to our clients based on what is important to them. We have certain clients that are really leaned into metrics such as attention. We have other clients that are very much less focused about that and much more less focused on what's most likely going to drive an action. And then even within that group, it could be high quality actions, medium quality actions, or low. So there's a huge diversity there, right? And again, that democratization is really important for us because it is true that those features exist within the demand side today, but the amount of flexibility that we truly have with those sort of custom algo features within demand side platforms and similar technologies, this is on a slightly different order of magnitude to what is available to us there, and that customer's ability to customize is really key. So I think to myself, like, if we can deliver outcomes in a more transparent way, if we can do that in a more cost efficient way, we can have a more transparent view across supply, which is so important now, given all of the things that have, hit our industry in the last sort of 3 to 4 years, different studies, etc. And I can do that in a way that's going to be more customized and relevant for our clients. I think that's a good thing. And I think that there are real challenges. There is the infrastructure challenge. I think Andrew's mentioned it several times. We need that scaled, and scale is key for us in this space. If we can only do this on a subset of the open internet, the cost benefit for us and our clients for engaging is not going to be there. We need a quorum. And
so you want an alternative, right? But it cannot be 5 million alternatives.
Exactly. It can't be 5 million, and it can't also just be one small one. It has to be. It has to be scaled. Has to be large. And just on that last point, right? My role is head of trading for Dentsu. It's important to have a really, really competitive ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I think that we need a credible alternative to the walled gardens, which do provide great value, great products, but there is an unmet need for us as agents of our clients and for our clients today, they want to see their marketing holistically. They want to make sure that it's driving every dollar into their business that it can. That's not possible without greater collaboration across the different players in the ecosystem.
Yeah. So we've talked about collaboration. Let's get to specifics. What specifically needs to be done? Is this like an IAB job? Like what needs to happen?
Like the good news is it's already happening, and the other good news is it didn't just start today. Like I would credit a growing number of companies who have placed a lot of bets without even any promise of ad spend. We've talked a lot about the work that we've done with Chalice over the years as one example, where you have a company that went from tuning APIs in DSPs to change different configurations, to taking a bet that they would stand up a model that we would put in the hot path of the impression, that would allow them to tune anything, and that would give them the advantage to perform better. There was no guarantees that it would, but it did. Then I think it was a year and a half ago, we took that base code base, and we standardized it. We donated it to the tech lab, and it became the Agentic framework standard that there's now over a dozen companies live with, and way more actively coding to, which is cool because now you have one standard mechanism for doing this kind of thing at scale. You couple that with, we're increasingly trying to field across all of our partners, what kind of next level things do they plan on doing within their own infrastructure? And what we keep hearing is everybody wants to do inference at the edge of the internet, which is really cool, which effectively just means, imagine taking the huge scaled fire hose of the internet and pointing it at GPUs that can handle it. And just imagine just a giant dollar sign that continues to increase the market cap of NVIDIA. That's basically what everybody wants to do. We can do that, though, if we get everyone to collectively agree that there's one way to use that very expensive chip. And so I guess I would just say, just in the spirit of your question, more partners leaning into the standards will help accelerate this, and B, more partners on the buy side, like Ant, and frankly, a growing number of buyers leaning in with their budgets, bringing their clients into it, will just continue to help this accelerate. And I think this is vital, because if the only companies that can drive outcomes at scale are, 2 or 3 companies in the Valley, that's not great. I don't love that. It's not why I started this company. I don't think any of my publisher customers want that future. And I think we can change it, and I'm motivated by it. And it's a very, very challenging proposition, but we see a path to do it because GPUs are pretty remarkable. Like, there's a potential to really level this market in a way that I don't think people can fully appreciate yet, which is what's motivating, I think.
But you're not ready to be like, we're an AI company now. I'm not going to speak for index marketing in the corner there, but I have always been very happy to be the humble infrastructure plumbing company. But we may end up rebranding ourselves as the AI company tomorrow. So, but there are a lot of new entrants in the space. I think that anytime there is like a new, even if it's just a term, it will spawn a ton of new companies in the space. It is innovation. I mean, Terry will have new slides.
Of course.
And
tomorrow.
the logos keep getting smaller.
The one thing that I would remind everybody of is the companies that we've talked about a few times, like, they have a lot of metal. They have real data centers. They have an incredible infrastructure. They have remarkable plumbing that makes everything else possible. That's very expensive. And so that is an impediment to getting these tools everywhere else, but it's a solvable problem. If we start to rethink the way we scale these companies, what's cool is a lot of the .ai companies, some of whom are also in the room, are building on top of these standards. And so they're skipping the historical ad tech step of build everything yourself and create a bunch of friction in the process, which is exciting, because I think that then brings us to this future iteration faster.
Right. But then are they wrapper companies, I guess is the...
No, I think they're independently solving their piece of value, which is how we get to this collective It's like the optionality that you mentioned. Like today, not today, but like generally, if you have a DSP and you have a client that's using it, and you have a campaign that runs in it, you have like this binary dynamic where you ran a campaign, it performed or it didn't, 0 or 1. Very soon, it's already happening today, you can now have that campaign have model optionality to be like, well, we're using the model that will drive, engagement, outcomes, viewability, whatever, and they become really swappable and really portable. That's really exciting. It's very empowering. And it also prevents you from having to switch platform after platform after platform and instead solve the actual problem. There's a lot of companies now that those modules that I described, they're focusing on just their one piece. And so then I like our chances long term as we get all of these companies who solve their one piece remarkably well coming together with one standard framework. I don't think this will be stoppable.
Okay, but that will change the sort of typical, which is like people solve one problem and then they say, we're going to solve another 1,000 problems that other people are trying to solve too.
Right. Well, I think like at the end of the day, some companies might be capable of solving 2 problems. But some companies might be able to solve one problem so well and so remarkably well that they won't have to not. But that's what's cool about an open framework. Like nothing would prevent somebody from doing multiple things, but they'll have to contend with somebody who just does one thing remarkably well.
Okay, and where can it go wrong?
That's a good question. I don't plan on it going wrong. Look, like I think it probably goes back to one of your earlier comments about booking your flight with agents. How long is this going to take? As in, how long will it take for us to move every buy to this new framework? Are we talking, a few years? Or are we talking a decade? I'm on the side that this is going to happen remarkably fast, but it could take a while.
Yeah, I was saying like earlier, I remember watching a 60 Minutes episode, this probably dates it, where Jeff Bezos was talking about drone delivery. And then last week I saw that they're actually doing this like in the suburbs in Denver, Amazon is. That 60 Minutes episode was 2007. So he was like, it's happening, it's right around the corner. He just got the dates a little bit off. So Ant, just to like wrap it up, like give me your, I asked about a dystopian, but give me the sort of optimistic take of, let's say 3 years time. Like how is agentic advertising? Has it moved from I assume that it will operate on the workflow level. It's operating on the workflow level in every industry.
Yep.
How involved is it going to be in the decisioning layer?
I mean, I was born in a hurry, and I share your mentality. I think this needs to happen fast. Actually, I think it's an imperative that it happens quickly. I think it's going to allow humans to go back to doing what humans do really well in our business, and there is a huge operational burden within the buy side, which can be ameliorated very, very quickly, and the technology is already there. We have to like lean into areas and train muscles that we're not used to training. Things like, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, how we record knowledge, how we record know-how. We've never really done that beyond having an onboarding document in our business. But being able to do that is going to be able to allow us to go and provide these sort of agentic solutions that are going to handle that workload. And what's going to be really critical for us is unlocking those humans to use that, to set policy for those agents. How should they operate in the marketplace? What should they prioritize? Creating the models. What should be prioritized in the model? How do we solve the alignment problems that can sometimes come about with AIs when they're operating freely? I think that's really, really interesting and valuable work. Supervising the campaign, understanding cultural trade-offs, long-term trade-offs, all of those sorts of things that humans excel at, they're going to be now enabled to do that. And when I think about going back to our discussion about the open internet, ecosystems, culture at large, like algorithms run our lives. They run the content that we watch. They run the ads that we see. They run the insurance policy that we either got or we just got declined on. It's a bit close to my heart. I just had a leak at home. Ceilings come down. Not sure how that premium's going to look next year.
There's a reason Warren Buffett invests in insurance companies.
Exactly right. We're in a world where algorithms run everything. It's really, really critical as marketers and as media practitioners that we find ways to break out that algorithm, because that's how we're going to get breakthrough for our clients. That's how we're going to create amazing experiences for consumers that hopefully align them more with the brands that we're trying to advertise. So for me, we need humans unlocked to do that. This is, on the workflow level, an ability to do it. When we talk about the larger opportunity, which I think is really, really exciting as well, about bringing more decisioning to the edge, I think that that's actually really, really critical for our long-term business success. I think the ability for us to bring our intellectual property, all the things I just talked about, to model that and bring that into the auction, I'm extremely excited about it. And I think that's sort of like the next step now. We probably need to spend the next couple of years. That's going to require some real hard work to get there, but I think it's necessary.
Okay, awesome. And Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Awesome.